This is the all-new Community Connection. I'm your host, Jade, Harrell, keeping you connected to our community. Today we're connecting with Lisa Lyle, who is the head of school for Mary Institute Country Day School, MICDS. We're here talking about the challenge as well as the opportunity of leading, guiding, and operating a diverse school in today's climate. So I'm glad you could be with us today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
For sure. So let's start with where things are. So as it stands in and around our area, there's tension, there's conflict, there's trial, but now it's filtering down into our student body and families in our school. How is that for you now, and what kinds of things have happened?
Well, of course, we all recognize that the current climate has heightened anxiety for a lot of folks. And following the election, we found ourselves with a mixed response to the election results. A number of kids super excited because their families and they had supported Trump. And then another portion of our community deeply unsatisfied because they would have supported Hillary Clinton. And sometimes, many of them, it wasn't that they supported either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, but that their political ideals align more with conservative or liberal values. And as we gathered after the election, what we found is that some of our more conservative kids who were jubilant felt that they were unsupported by our community. And one of our students documented that in a letter to the head of the upper school, and it went viral. I love the leadership kids demonstrate by pulling together their thinking in that way. They're excellent writers, and I really respected that effort. But when it went viral, it unleashed a really strong response within our community. The initial response was from many who felt like she was articulating a sentiment they had long held, that our school had gotten a little too liberal, and that the nation as a whole had for 8 years been maybe too liberal. So it was just the spark that lit some pretty dry grass out there, and it really quickly spread. It didn't take long before there was a response from another part of our community. And this response came to us primarily from young alumni. And so the young alumni read that initial letter. They saw the reaction from parents and alumni in the community and wanted to share their perspectives on it. So one of our alumni was quick to point out that feeling marginalized, as maybe some of our more conservative students had more recently, wasn't the same thing as being oppressed. Mm-hmm. And of course, as a nation, we bring with us 400 years of history of racial division and oppression. As a school, we are 150 years old, so of course we too bring with us a long history. We had some students for whom reading about student concerns reminded them of painful memories they had in association with their time at the school, mm-hmm. and they of course felt compelled to share those. And reading those memories just broke my heart. I wouldn't want any child to feel marginalized or oppressed mm-hmm. within our school community. Mm-hmm. But of course, we are a microcosm of the larger world. Right. And so it would be naive and idealistic for me to hope that our school is insulated from that. And yet I do believe our schools give us the opportunity to create community and to get much closer to that ideal than we might in society at large. So I'm brokenhearted, but I'm unflinching because we must look at the reality of what we are learning from our alumni, young and old, from our current students, from their families, and find a common path forward. You know, Jade, one thing about our independent school, we have kids that come to us from 65 different zip codes. 34% of our kids self-describe as kids of color. 4% of our kids receive financial aid. They come to us from every part of the metropolitan area and internationally. We have a huge international population. I think 16% of our kids speak a language other than English as their primary language at home. So to me, it's not surprising that the range of views expressed in our nation would materialize right in our school. Mm-hmm. And the range of expression of respectful and disrespectful behavior that exists beyond our campus would also exist within our campus. But I am still not satisfied with that. I we, as an institution, have a mission that guides us. And part of that mission requires that our students and we demonstrate compassion for all the world's people. So we can adamantly disagree around the ideals we hold for our democracy, but we are a democracy. We have a voting process that will lead us through that. And we need to be agents for change using that process. But as a school community, we have an obligation to each and every single child to provide a learning environment in which they are challenged and supported and safe. And if we have fallen short for any child, as clearly we have, given what I've heard from some of our young alumni and parents and students, we are not satisfied with that, and we will not condone that behavior. So we have had in place a long time a diversity director and efforts to help us all develop our skills to effectively work across cultural difference. We need to redouble those efforts and ensure that we develop what we need to programming for kids, for faculty, for alumni, and for parents that help us approach more closely the ideal that I really believe we all hold for our community.
Sure. I agree and believe that we hold that. Because it is a microcosm of our society at large, of the world that we're living in, are we naive and idealistic to think that it can happen?
Well, I don't have examples.
Sure.
I mean, I look at universities across the nation where it's exploding, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe, given that we have 14 years with a number of our kids, and certainly really the fewest is about 4, and because our kids sit next to each other and they play on the same sports teams and they're on the stage together, they have collaborative projects together, I think that we have a shot at creating the conditions that allow them to come to understand each other well enough that their hearts open. You know, in times of crisis, and this feels like a time of crisis for us as an institution, we are at our most vulnerable and can be our most honest. And I want to be honest about the challenges I see we face as a nation and as an institution. And I believe deeply that if we can continue this work in our institution with partnership from equity educators in St. Louis, and there are many who are very strong in this work, if we can invite the participation of parents so they understand what we are trying to do for their kids, we stand a much better chance of graduating kids ready to go forth and meet the challenges of the world that awaits them with confidence and compassion. The challenges they will face are going to be many. But one of the big challenges will be for us to continue to live into this e pluribus unum thing we have going on as these United States of America.
Yeah.
And that's not easy work.
No, absolutely. And so you, where you sit, where you are in your role and purview, as you said, you're in a crisis where you have no choice but to make it work. It has to work, or you'll have the explosion that you described that we've seen in other institutions all over the globe, for that matter. And the greatest escalation is that those could be extremely harmful to the families, the students, the communities that surround those places. So partnership is going to be extremely valuable. But I do see where you have an advantage in your role of leadership, that you've learned about this dry grass from all of those perspectives. As maybe not as much as a mediator, but maybe a translator or a connector, what would be some of your communication to the different parts of your community, addressing those needs that they each seem to have?
If I think really of our majority families who have long been involved in our school, and many of those families have been in the school for 6 or 7 generations. Can you imagine? I don't have any experience in my family that gives me that kind of institutional connection, right? For those families, they deeply love the institution, and it has been a vibrant and relevant institution for 150 years. For us as an institution to continue to be as relevant and as vibrant an institution, we absolutely must open our doors wide to the changing demographic in our communities. Mm-hmm. Jade, you probably know, but our second graders across the nation are majority minority.
What does majority minority mean?
So what that means is there will be more kids. So for our second graders, as they continue to move through their lives, they will be surrounded nationwide by more kids who are non-white than they are.
For the first time ever.
For the first time ever, right? And we have two choices. We can either fear that new reality or prepare ourselves to thrive in that new reality. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm going for thriving. Yeah. And I want to do that for our kids as well. There are states, Texas, Arizona, California, New York, already that are majority minority. Mm-hmm. There are, I don't know, among the major metropolitan areas, many of those are now majority minority, a large number. And so for our kids to thrive, majority kids have to learn to work effectively across difference and to do that eagerly.
Yeah.
Not forgetting who they are or what their history is, but being respectfully curious about. There's a man I'll meet with in early January who's written a book called Confident Pluralism, John Inazu at Washington University. And that combination of being confident in who we are and what we believe, and yet having the humility and the respectful curiosity to understand the perspective of others is really what's going to be required for us to forge a common path into the future, one that is confident but shared. And
it shares the value that someone else can hold the knowledge and pride and respect that you have for yourself, for them and themselves as well. That actually is a great response to what I might have asked. Well, if that majority community felt like the reason why the thriving and vibrance was there was because there wasn't that inclusion. I think you've addressed all those points. One is that it wasn't based on the majority. It was based on that community, the space, the opportunities that existed. And as each new family came, who was actually diverse, whether they were colorful or not, the families were varied and different. And throughout the history of the school, I would imagine, and just even when I think of the founding, Mary Elliott was different.
Absolutely.
From other children. So you answered that very well in the fact that the change is happening all around, not simply because MICDS is forcing that to happen or saying that, well, we've got to be diverse just because. It's not. It is the world, our community, our families, the people are changing now. And actually, with it being second grade as each year goes forward, that it's just going to get broader.
It is.
But that's not a threat. You even included. Yes.
But yet, we know that as families, as individuals come together with fewer shared experiences, we have to work through stuff.
Sure. Keyword is sharing stuff. Yeah. Having some shared experiences addresses that pretty readily,
It does.
And we have few opportunities because we don't share. And this is where I celebrate your opportunity in that the children do get opportunities to share work, projects, activities, sports, successes, victories, challenges, and all those things together. And hopefully they'll share that enthusiasm to connect. We have a diverse group of people that are going to listen to this interview. What would be your message that's from you directly on behalf of the school? Because there's lots of messages now. We've got articles, we've got interviews, we've got stories, we've got clips, but there's so much. Directly your address. What would be your address to those that are listening today on behalf of the school and what your plans are in addressing the things that you have discovered?
Well, I first off want to say that for families of color who maybe have read some of the postings, I'm deeply saddened to read those.
Because you didn't know any of these things were happening? Was it
certainly we knew that kids had been insensitive to each other at various times, and when things were brought to our attention, we dealt with them. Kids can sometimes be quite mean, and there have been some pretty egregious missteps that some of which have resulted in kids no longer remaining at the school. So we have absolutely worked hard to respond appropriately to behavior that was not fitting our mission of compassion for all the world's people. So what I would say to these families is we are absolutely committed to your kids. We have now generations of kids who have gone through the school and who have thrived and had so many opportunities as a result of the education they've had. But those opportunities should never be at the expense of hurtful experiences. And that some students have experienced that is not okay for me. And it's not okay for our institution. Sure. And we will work on this. Redoubled our efforts in a number of ways, and we'll continue to do that.
Can you share some of your plans?
Sure, absolutely. So first, I want to talk about kids because we are an institution of kids. And the changes that we can make can most quickly and immediately affect our children. Sure. So we're planning an event for our upper school students who want to participate and make a difference in their community around this topic. At last count, 90 kids of our 165 had signed up, and I'm sure that number's gone up. I just haven't seen a more recent number.
What do you call the topic when you send out the invitation? How do you?
We invited them to a conversation to make the school better across difference. And I don't remember exactly the language. I could look that up.
No. It's just it's good to get a sense of how do you even approach it. You know?
And the
without
kids,
feeling like
of
we've
course,
got to back away from it.
The kids know what's going on, right? They saw that initial letter from one of their peers. They are so plugged in on social media. They've seen the volleys that are coming back and forth, right? They are completely aware of that. Yeah. And yet they don't like being at odds one with the other. And so I think they're gonna roll up their sleeves and get in there honestly. So
I think their friendships were in place before the mess got stirred up.
Yes.
And then they found themselves in a place to realize, okay, there's something beyond that's stronger than that. Or at least I know that I don't want to exchange my friendship for this conflict.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's actually why community is so important, because in family, how many times do you know, I'm just not going to go there because, or I'm going to say it in a different way out of respect for this person because I love them so deeply.
Family was established first.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I hope we will do is we'll reestablish, really reconfirm some norms for our community so that we won't avoid difficult conversations. We have to go. There are issues facing our nation, and these are kids that are going to be in a position to step up and try to solve them. So I don't want to protect them from conversations around difficult issues around the environment or climate change or poverty in America or distribution of income or race in America or religion or public education.
Oh, my goodness.
All of those things, right, really require that our kids dive into it. But they have to dive into it respectfully, with curiosity, with an open heart, and they have to do it in close proximity to each other because each kid's going to bring something different to the table. All right, so let me tell you about the session. So it's going to be facilitated by folks who are well trained in this. The first hour or so is going to be in kind of caucus group. Kids are going to gather with other kids whose experience is more similar to their own and perspective is more similar to their own. They need to remind themselves that they have folks and are not alone, and they need to think together about what do we want other kids to understand about how we're feeling, how we're experiencing this. So they'll do that in their various groups. Then they will come together in mixed groups to share their perspectives and listen deeply to those. We're allocating about an hour and a half for that part of it because they need to have time to work through this stuff. And then we're going to begin and take a baby step toward what should we be doing. And so they're going to think strategically. And then those kids that didn't choose to participate in the day, who chose to attend their regular classes, will be invited toward the end of the day at 2:45 to come together as an upper school community and hear from the kids who have been thinking about this. And so that they can invite larger participation from all the kids. You perhaps heard about our cross-politics commission that some kids started in the upper school. That's just now getting off the ground, but they were early in wanting to create conversation across the aisle. And so 4 kids who kind of think of themselves as conservative and 4 who see themselves as more liberal are serving as kind of the co-chairs for this. And this is a new effort for us, and I'm really excited about it.
Very
they want to
nice.
tackle some of the issues that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
We know that we need to do more training. We need to help all kids be more sensitive to the perspective of others around them. Those kids who are more typically targeted by racist or thoughtless remarks that reflect oftentimes an unconscious bias against particular groups of people, but more recently have been experienced through marginalization of maybe more conservative kids. All kids need to be prepared to verbally respond to that. If they witness it, they need to be prepared to be an upstander and not a bystander for that. And we clearly need to reinforce that with kids and give them very specific language to use and to remind them that if that confronting it on their own isn't sufficient to nip it in the bud, then they have to seek the help of adults.
Absolutely.
I'm so sad when I hear about things for the first time.
Right.
After a child has held that in their heart for days or weeks or months or years
In
now.
this
I'm
case,
hearing
with
things
alumni.
with alumni. Oh my goodness. Anytime we hold something inside, it just calcifies and gets hard. And I don't want that to happen for any
For
child.
anybody, yeah. What will you do differently now that you have this experience, this crisis, this awareness that has come about?
Well, we certainly are going to commit to fostering open conversation between adults and kids around important issues so we can practice and get better at doing this. I'm thinking about communication, effective cross-cultural communication as a muscle that we all have to develop. And we need to be tolerant and forgiving of each other because we will doubtless say things that come out sideways. But in community, just like in family, we can hear things that are maybe hurtful and say, ouch, did you really mean that? And give the person we're talking with a chance to start over and try again without assuming that they're a terrible person in the world. It's complicated these days because there's been this overlay of language with the political discussions. So it's been hard to separate out political ideology from language that has made its way across the airways and into our families and into our homes and to our school. So we need to do that and be really careful about it. We want to support these kids in their new leadership efforts.
Absolutely.
We are excited and have been in conversation with a really wonderful man named Jack Oliver, who's a former Republican National Committee chairman who is eager to help us with a speaker series. So what we're going to do is choose topics and get the very best thinking on the conservative side on an issue and the very best thinking on the liberal side on an issue and bring folks together, kids and adults, to engage in active listening exercises to learn more. And then we'll have the adults stay together for their conversation and kids go have their conversation. And all of us continue to learn. I am reminded so often how little I know about something. And I'm also reminded how often we surround ourselves by people who agree with our opinions. And I know that that's natural and normal, but we can't let ourselves do that if we create echo chambers and
Those
don't
become silos. In order for it to echo, there's walls.
That's right.
There's something that bounces that off right back. And if it's to reflect something more than one voice, then more voices will need to be in that space.
Yes.
I'm glad you included a part because my next question would have been, children come from households and families, and then what would be the way to affect families? Of course, starting with the children is one of the best and most relevant, important ways to do so. But you have opportunities for the families that are open to the idea to, and I'm sure they're going to learn tremendously from their children who are empowered and encouraged and maybe in some cases emboldened to speak up positively about change. But you do have something in place to also connect and engage families.
We do. We have a very robust parent education program because we recognize how challenging it is to parent. So we talk about everything from sleep deprivation and ADHD to raising children in an increasingly global and diverse world. And doing that so that our kids feel confident and energized by the opportunities at hand. But of course, all of us, and I'm not throwing stones here, around the dinner table can say things that if our children don't understand what we mean, or if we aren't balanced in the expression of opinion, our kids can take that and feel emboldened in their own conversations in ways that make them disrespectful.
Well, that stone hit my house.
Well, it was
you got
mine
me here,
too.
because when we heard it back coming from them, we were like, no. That's not what we mean to say, nor do we want you to go say that.
Exactly. Right. And it's just such a good reminder for all of us, right, to help our children develop a respectful balance.
Yes.
Actually, one of the most energizing conversations I've had is with a young woman who has one parent who's quite conservative and one who's quite liberal. But she really is able to do that hard thing of holding opposing ideas and ideals simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really a challenge to all of us.
She's a prodigy, I would say.
we need her stepping up in leadership
her come
roles,
and
right?
teach us how to do this better. Well,
That's
in
right.
closing, let's make sure that we encourage cross-cultural communication among us all. But for your opportunity to address this and the headlines and all that's going on, the buzz about the independent schools, Ladue Road, Warson Road, as well as MICDS. What do you want folks in our community to understand? What do you most want folks to come away with from today's conversation?
That it is in everyone's best interest to figure this out. We have a huge opportunity as a nation to grapple with significant challenges. And it will only be if we can find a way to bring everyone to the table that we have any hope of getting this right. And if we can each have the humility to seek first to understand and then the persistence to later express our ideas in ways that can be heard, we have a shot at continuing to live into this American democracy that we are so blessed to be part of. And I hope that we will, I'm confident we will figure that out. But I hope we accelerate our figuring out of that today so we can avoid explosive, angry conflict in the meantime. Each time we have to resort to screaming at each other and acting out, it's because we are afraid that we aren't being heard. So if we can extend the hand of friendship to other people and extend an open heart and clear eyes, I believe we have a shot at this. And I just want to invite folks to come along for that journey.
That's it. We also include a way for folks to connect with the school if they want to find out more and learn more about what efforts you're doing there and how we may get involved and help as a community.
Oh, well, first off, let me direct you to our Facebook page. So if you go there, you'll find links to all sorts of information. Our school's website has contact numbers and email addresses for all of us. Certainly, you'll find us on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And we invite active participation and are eager to be transparent in the efforts we are making to make progress here.
Lisa Lyle, the head of school, MICDS-Mary Institute Country Day School, thank you for taking the time to address, encourage, and inspire us all in this crisis and those that may certainly come after this. Thank you so much.
I'm so delighted to be with you, Jade. Thank you for welcoming me.
Great. All right, that's it for this week. If you have questions or comments or have something you'd like to include in the community calendar, you can leave a message on our message box at 314-333-8369, 314-333-8369. And for more information about our show or any of our guests, you can visit us online and listen to the podcast at Spreaker.com. That's Spreaker.com. And search Community Connection with Jade Harrell. You all be blessed, do blessed, and take care.